But right as Fox was about to go to commercial, it was terribly ironic. They were showing, the promos and photo shoots from Media Day and fading out to commercial, and then they fade right back in, and you see Newgarden in a shower of sparks upside down on the main straightaway. Just a horrifying crash with Louis Foster. Foster had gotten up out of the racing groove, hit the wall, lost control, tried to save it, was unable to, and then spun down to the inside. And at that point, Newgarden had already committed to the low line, and we saw the massive accident that was unavoidable at that point. So, Brandon, I know you mentioned the AMR Safety Team. How impressed were you by their rapid response, number one? And then number two, do you think this situation could have been avoided or at least been a lot less severe had the caution been displayed sooner when Foster was just starting to get out of shape there?
Yeah, I didn't mean to get ahead of our talking points there, but
No
yeah,
worries.
I think the song they were playing was "Shadows of the Night," Pat Benatar or something. So that song forever has a different meaning to me now. I guess I'm going to see Josef Newgarden leading, and then they almost cut to break, and then yep, he's upside down. And I think it was Nathan Kiani on X that brought up another point in time where that also happened. I think it was some kart race in the '90s. Where that same sort of incident happened right when they went to commercial and they had to cut right back, and there was the leader on his lid. The AMR Safety Team I already mentioned about their response, but that was a talking point yesterday. Could that have been avoided had they thrown the yellow out any sooner? Yes, but I go back in my mind's eye of that incident, and it's looking down the front stretch. And like, by the time it seems like I would have to go back and look at it, but it seems like by the time the Newgarden got off of 4, the yellow was already going. But I guess there was like plenty of seconds with Louis Foster already sideways and at a standstill before they went to yellow. I assume that's the stance that's being taken. Is that correct? Like there's a good amount of time of him being rolling down from top to bottom.
Yeah, I think if I just had to guess based on what I saw, I think they were probably holding the yellow, seeing if Foster could gather it back up, and then when he didn't, it still took them a second or two, and only right before Newgarden was about to make contact with Foster was when the yellow lights came on, and at that point it was unavoidable, like I said. But Kobe, I don't know if you have any thoughts on the situation.
Yeah, I just know it was the following caution after this. They were like really quick on the button. I think it was, didn't Malukas brush the wall and like gather it up, and then they threw the caution. So I thought that was their way of trying to make up for what happened the first time around. Yeah, I really didn't think that second incident warranted a caution since Malukas gathered it up. But I'm thankful that they realized based on that action, it makes me believe that they realized that they were wrong to not get the caution out soon enough. And if they had gotten the caution out, just a few seconds sooner, maybe Newgarden avoids an accident like that. And, definitely got to, tip your hat to the AMR Safety Team for being there really quickly. Someone on social media forgot who it was. They actually showed the time from when Newgarden's car stopped and how soon they arrived. And on the clock, they were there in 3 seconds. Like as soon as Newgarden's car stopped sliding, down the track, came to a rest, they were there in 3 seconds. Had someone already talking to Newgarden, while his car was upside down. So just shows why they're one of the best safety teams in all of motorsports, and IndyCar is very lucky to have them around because they're prepared for any type of scenario. It doesn't matter whether you crash on the front stretch, the back stretch, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4. There's always going to be someone there, within 5 to 10 seconds at most, but 3 seconds, very, very impressive. So if we're lucky Newgarden wasn't hurt, but if he was, it's good that the team prepared for these situations. They were able to attend to him very quickly. And I also want to say thank God for the aero screen, because if it wasn't for that, I hate to imagine what could have happened to Josef Newgarden there. When we first saw the replay of the crash, I was thinking, oh God, this might be another 2017 crash when we saw Scott Dixon go flying over Jay Howard. I thought seeing the initial impact of Louis Foster's car, not knowing what had happened, I thought Newgarden had like completely launched over the top of him and gone in the air, to end upside down. And thankfully it wasn't, as awful as Scott Dixon's accident in 17, but still very scary, for Newgarden, especially when you're going, upside down, head first into the wall. But thankfully, the aero screen seemed to, make the situation a lot better than it could have been for Josef Newgarden. And as we all remember, several years ago, I believe at the time he was driving for Ed Carpenter Racing at Texas Motor Speedway, he and Connor Daly had a awful crash at Texas Motor Speedway, and Newgarden ended up getting injured in that crash. It was before we had the aero screen, and he went helmet first into the wall, and I think he might have broken his collarbone in that crash, if I remember correctly. So I'm sure that brought back some awful memories from Josef Newgarden, but happy he walked away from that, and hopefully he'll be able to put this one behind him like he did the other one at Texas.
Yeah, people said it reminded them of the Dixon Howard crash in 17. That was the Texas crash in 16, Kobe. That was the one that came to mind for me, just because it was also involving Newgarden. I still remember watching that. I don't think I was watching live, but I was watching the highlights and immediately saw him go cockpit first, and was thankful that it was just his collarbone, because, like you said, we didn't have a halo or aero screen cockpit protection device at that time in the IndyCar series, and so we're thankful, obviously, that we have that now, and I think it has prevented many injuries and even saved many lives since it's been introduced. But grateful that Newgarden was able to walk away from that. And again, I think we had this comment here from A Day in the Life, 6 seconds for yellow to come out. I think it was somebody said it was only 3.5 seconds from the time Newgarden came to rest for the AMR Safety Team was on the scene there. So an incredible response from them. And certainly the best in the business across all of motorsports, I think, but especially the IndyCar series field is very lucky to have them.